where we now host in-person and virtual events, along with partnered events, trips, and classes. For a full list of everything confirmed, please go to our website, politics-prose.com. I'm out of breath. Before we get started today, I'd like to ask you to please silence your cell phone so as not to disrupt the event. And while we've lifted the mask mandate here in the store, you're encouraged to wear a mask throughout the event, and we can provide one if you forgot to bring one. So when we get time to opening up the floor to your questions, we've placed a microphone at the end of the large pillar to your right if you're facing me. So please line up at one of these mics, at this mic, so that everybody can hear you, as we want your question to be heard in our recording of the event. We are audio and video recording today. And you and anyone you know can soon find the recording at the Politics and Prose YouTube channel. So be sure to check it out and share it. Following the Q&A, we'll have a signing up here at this big table. So if you haven't already purchased your book, we have plenty of copies behind our registers at the front of the store. And we'll ask you to line up starting at that same pillar where the microphone is, and we'll come by to ask your name for personalization, so please have your books out and ready for us. Once the event is complete, we ask that you please fold up your chairs and lean them against something sturdy like that row of bookshelves over there, just to help us out a bit. So now, without further ado, tonight I'm very excited to welcome Virginia Hartman, celebrating the release of The Marsh Queen. Virginia holds an MFA from American University and teaches creative writing at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., and at the Writers' Center in Bethesda. Her fiction, poetry, and essays have appeared in the Hudson Review, Alaska Quarterly Review, the Washingtonian, Redux, Potomac Review, Delmarva Review, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Sligo Journal, and Bluebird City, among others. And her work has been anthologized in Gravity Dancers, even more fiction by Washington area women. She's also the co-editor with Barbara Esstman of A More Perfect Union, Poems and Stories About the Modern Wedding. Her work has been nominated for a Pushcart Prize, and her writing has been supported by the Sewanee Writers Conference and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Her stories have been shortlisted for the New Letter Prize, the Tennessee Williams Festival Prize, and the Dana Awards. So please join me in welcoming to Politics and Prose, Virginia Hartman.
Elisa, thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you all for being here. I am floored. It is great to look out and see you all and see your faces. All right, what do I need to tell you about this book? Okay, trigger warning, salty language. I should say that this is a very swampy book, as you may have guessed from the title and the cover. And it's also a book full of contrasts. Between water and land, between small town and big town, indoors and outdoors, and being able to fly like the birds versus being stuck on the ground in your own circumstances. It's also about deciding between turning away from your problems or facing them. So lots of contrasts. In the book, the protagonist, Loni, spends a good deal of time in the swamp drawing the birds that she loves. But you're not going to get any of that tonight, sorry. Since you're a Washington crowd, I decided I would read the more citified scenes, the ones set here in Washington. So as you might know, Loni is 36, a bird artist at the Smithsonian, and she really loves her job. But she's called away from the museum, and that's when things get a bit dicey, because she's kind of reluctantly drawn into finding out more about her dad, who died in the swamp a long time ago. I'll be reading a passage from chapter 2, so not too far into the book. And I promise it will take about 20 minutes at the most, so nobody will have time to fall asleep. And then I'll take your questions, and then after that, I'll be signing copies if you like. So let's get started. I feel like Aretha, she always put her purse right on the piano. So there's my heavy purse. public space of the museum is loud and full of tourists. Their curiosity is endearing. They're acolytes for the natural world. But on my gray days, entering the building carries the weight of the deaths of all the specimens, carcasses of every species, stuffed or otherwise retrieved from oblivion, so we can know them, yet all dead. On these days, my defense is to imagine every pinned butterfly taking wing, every stuffed marsupial waking up, every preserved plant specimen blooming and carpeting the floor like a time-lapse forest, and every bird coming to life, flying up to the dome and away. Thus lifted, I can lose myself for hours drawing, for instance, the common loon with its inky head and an intricacy of pin dots cascading across the wings. With the right precision, I can bring the deadness of a bird skin to a striking facsimile of life. I enter the back hallway and ascend to my studio, a well-lit office with my drafting table by the window. Vertical shelves hold drawing papers arranged by weight and soft pencils organized by the pliability of their graphite. Dark bottles of Rapid Draw sit next to an insanely large number of pen nibs, and next to them, my tubes of paint in rainbow order, Roy G. Biv, and all the gradations between. I sit at my drafting table and look over the National Mall and its line of American elms, soon to begin a fragile march budding, and toward the Smithsonian Castle. I've worked here for 9 years, but it only took one day at Natural History to know I'd found my home. Yesterday was my 36th birthday, and my colleagues came in singing, insisting I blow out candles on a cake. They don't know the water is rising as I close in on 37, my father's magic number, his end point. On my slanted table is a partially finished Vanellus chilensis, the southern lapwing, her slender black crest flying out behind her head. I refine the bronze sheen on the wings and fill in the gray, black, and white of the face. I'm at the tip of the beak when the phone rings. Loni, it's Phil. For a millisecond, I think my brother has remembered my birthday. Then I come to my senses. Phil, is something wrong? Mom's had a fall. You gotta get here. He pauses. And you should plan for an extended stay. He tells me she broke her wrist, but that's not the main problem. She's been acting strangely, Loni. Her memory, come on, everybody that age forgets things, I say. I was home last year and noticed her extra short temper with me, but that's just an intensification of a lifelong habit. Tammy thinks it's the early onset thing. My mother's only 62, and Phil's wife Tammy is no medical expert. I don't want my sister-in-law making any diagnoses. I'll see if I can get some days off. No, listen, Loni, take more. This is major, and we need you here. He so rarely asks. However, it's not the ideal time to miss work. The administration has installed a cadre of non-scientists, mostly baby business majors, to examine the Smithsonian's efficiency quotient. I'd call them fresh young faces if they weren't so imperious and sour. Ornithology's youthful hatchet man is Hugh Adamson. Last Monday, he called a meeting to spit out corporate speak. We'll be encouraging early retirement, he said to his elders. We won't replace those who quit, and we'll enforce any violations of the leave policy. Downsizing via attrition, he paused, should not affect morale. I head down to the hall to consult the botany librarian, Dolores Constantine, who's worked at the Smithsonian for the last 40 years. The passage leading to botany is lined with cabinets full of dried plants laid out on acid-free paper. Today, I imagine them as a vertical garden, orchids and epiphytes dripping from the sides, a phantom scent of humid forest. I enter the library. Dolores? Back here. She stands on a rickety stool between stacked bookshelves. At eye level, the hem of her mauve skirt meets a pair of age-spotted shins. She lifts 2 large volumes above her head and hoists them onto a high shelf. She can be as prickly as a stalk of blessed thistle, so I don't mention the danger of her perch. When she steps down, I tell her about my brother's call and the need to take time off. She crosses to her desk, clicks the mouse, and peers at the screen. This is the FMLA form, family leave. She whips a sheet off the printer, offering it to me with a blue-veined hand. You fill this out, ask for 8 weeks off, and go take care of your mom. 8 weeks? No possible way. You don't have to use it all. Heck, the law gives you 12. But with all the suits walking around this place, best keep it to 8. 2 weeks in my hometown would be more than I can take, I say. Dolores puts a stack of books onto a cart. You ask for 8, and if you use only 2, come back and look incredibly dedicated to your work. As a plant person, Dolores may not seem like the most apt career counselor for a bird artist, but she knows more than anyone about how this place works. So she says, go fill out that form and walk it down to HR. As I reach the doorway, she lifts another set of books and says, 3 things to remember. Number 1, the Smithsonian won't pay you during your family leave. But number 2, check out the liaison program. I think the Tallahassee Science Museum is a subscriber. If they pay you directly, you can preserve your leave status. I nod, then turn back. What's number 3? Don't go a minute past the time you request. It's the French Revolution around here, and they're oiling the guillotine. I go back to my desk, fill out the form Dolores gave me, and search the Smithsonian website for liaison program. Then I call Estelle, my truest Floridian friend who always picks up when I call. Estelle, I say, is your museum part of the liaison program with mine? Hello, Loni. Yes, I'm fine, thanks. And you? When I'm moving slow, she's moving fast. And now this once, when it counts, she wants to slow me down. I can visualize exactly where she is at her curator's desk in the Tallahassee Science Museum, and I can even approximate what she's wearing, some stunning jewel-toned suit, crisp white-collared shirt, and complicated jewelry, her long red curls pushed back to accommodate the phone at her ear. Estelle, I say, please just tell me. Yes, we are. Do you think I'd have my best friend working at the Smithsonian and not lobby hard for a connection? The board approved it 6 months ago, and I believe I mentioned it to you. Right, I thought so. There's a little excitement in your voice, Loni. Yep, so see if you might need anything from a wandering bird artist. You're coming home? Just for a little while. Yay! And as a matter of fact, no need to commit right now, I say. It's just good to know there's a possibility. It takes me 3 days to get the form stamped and approved, and my own boss, Teo, mollified. He sits at his desk to sign the papers, then tosses the pen down and drags his hand from graying mustache to chin. I try to reassure him. Teo, I plan to come back quickly, 2 weeks max. Uh-huh, he says. I'll be back for the forest fragmentation project. It's a program that's been years in the making, requiring careful documentation of bird populations and countless illustrations. I promise. I pack my art kit, a tiny tackle box into which I place my favorite pencils, a quill pen and a few nibs, a matte knife, my Arkansas stone, and more crinkly tubes of paint than I'll ever use. I stuff my sketchbook and a few other small items into my large cloth bag, and then I turn out the office light. My fellow illustrator, Ginger, comes running toward me from botany, her long body waving side to side and her wild hair moving back and forth like a feathery bunch of fennel in the breeze. Loni, with you gone, who'll defend me against the bug people? As departments, we aren't very respectful of one another. The geologists are the rock people, and Dolores and Ginger are the plant people. Here in ornithology, we're the bird people, and the ichthyologists are the fish people. The entomologists are the bug people. Those in paleo are the bone people, and anthro is just anthro, because otherwise we'd have to call them the people people. Ginger is a botanical artist, but she spends a lot of time hanging out by my office door, procrastinating. She is usually either comforting me about my latest dating failure, telling me I'm beautiful and wasting my time on jerks, envying my long straight hair that doesn't frizz like hers in DC humidity, or moaning about the bug people who continually ask her for illustrative favors. 8 whole weeks, she says. I'm not staying that long. I hold up my art kit, and I'm working while I'm there. After Estelle and I talked on the phone, she called me back to say she'd finagled some funding for a few key drawings of Florida birds. Teo steps out of his office at the end of the hall. The skylight amplifies his padded frame, and he smooths his salt and pepper mustache. Teo has been a mentor since my first Smithsonian expedition, when our team of scientists walked into a muddy Peruvian cloud forest looking for the Gallita de las Rocas, Rubicola peruvianus, the bright orange bird with the tall bouffant. I trudged behind him for miles, my energy nearly spent and 2 sips of water left, nothing to focus on but his waistline bulging over fatigued green khakis, wondering how a pudgy guy 20 years my senior could have so much more stamina. Then he pulled up short and raised his right index finger, pointing toward the tangerine-colored bird we'd come to see. Without Teo, I'd have walked right past it. He tries to sound hard-nosed. You filed those FMLA forms? Yes, boss. And you got the official notice from HR? I nod. Any last words, he says. Don't let them eliminate my job. Just get back on time, Loni. That's all I have to say. I got that message. I give him a pat on the arm, the limit of physical affection allowed by federal employee guidelines, and push through the door to the next hallway. Who is there to greet me but our man, Hugh Adamson? He wears a bright red tie that buckles where it meets a gold bar. Ms. Murrow, a word? I've never been expert at concealing my feelings, and I'm afraid that in Hugh's meetings I haven't been as stoic as Teo. Either because I've asked an irritating question or two, or because my face has betrayed me, Hugh regards me with particular disdain. He looks down at a clipboard. Miss Murrow, I see you've requested 8 weeks off under the Family Medical Leave Act. As today is March 15th, that will make your return date May 10th. Please know that May 10 means May 10. And if you report to work on May 11 rather than the previous day, May 10, you will be regrettably terminated. I give him a fake smile, closing my eyes and keeping my lips together lest I say something unfortunate about the number of times he has said May 10, or about treating his elders like effing idiots. Perhaps he intuits what is on my mind because he lowers his otherwise prepubescent voice and says, Do you think I won't do it? I beg your pardon? I see how you look at me during meetings like I'm a little shit who doesn't know what he's doing. Hugh, I don't think I've... Well, you just better come back on May 10, Loni, because on May 11 your ass will be in a sling and we'll be waving you goodbye. I nod and proceed past our young despot. I've never really understood that expression, ass in a sling. In this case, it could be one of those giant slingshots drunk college boys use to hurl water balloons at unsuspecting passersby. Perhaps Hugh was his fraternity's slingshot chairman. Maybe he'd like to pull back and fling every scientist in his small realm of power from a turret of the Smithsonian Castle. To regain my equilibrium, I head for the corridor of bird skins. These are not taxidermied birds, not cute in any way. Still, it comforts me to open the wide, flat drawers and see them there, even if they are tied at the feet and devoid of the life conveyed in the average field guide. Ornithologists, it turns out, are both preservationists and murderers, learning how to scoop out a bird's innards and keep the feathers on. But a bird skin, if properly prepared, can serve as a reference into the next century and beyond. Like this drawer full of cardinals, juveniles, males, females, specimens with winter plumage, summer plumage, and every variety within the varieties. I close the drawer and continue wandering the corridors, soaking in the fluorescent dimness and the preservative smell that could be slowly pickling our brains, lulling us all into unpaid overtime and an odd reluctance to leave. The noisy museum goers never see this labyrinth behind the gleaming cases and stage-lit dioramas, never need to know about botany's desiccated stalks or anthro's disassembled people filed away in labeled bins, skulls, femurs, tibiae, and fibulae. In Orne, we have dead birds ceiling to floor, but at least we don't separate them into their various bits. I'm almost to rocks when I push on a pebbled glass door leading to the main rotunda. It's taxidermied elephant frozen mid-charge. I turn a circle, tilt my gaze up past the balcony toward the dome, and whisper a prayer to the natural world to bring me back healthy and whole, and well before May 10. All right, so I'm sure you have all kinds of questions for me. If you do have a question, if you don't mind talking into the microphone for the recording, that would be great. Roberta.
It was wonderful.
Thank
to hear.
you.
And just congratulations on this book. I'm interested to know about the research behind this book, ornithology, botany, all of the other ideas that you've mentioned that are so important to her character, Loni's character. Could you comment a bit?
Yes, I count lying on my couch, reading about, herb lore and looking through bird books as writing. So I did spend a lot of time reading and researching, and I did actually cold call the ornithology department at the Smithsonian, and they said, "Sure, come on by." And that was just, you heard basically a transcript of what I saw there, and bird artists talked to me, and a botany artist talked to me, and I will say it was a cold call, but I had met one of the special librarians of the Smithsonian, so I used her name, and they let me in, but it was great because you really don't get to see behind the scenes like that all the time. So I felt really privileged. Thanks for the question. Hi. I'll repeat the question so that it'll be on the recording if you can't get out.
I was just wondering if there was anything wrong in research that you had to and regretted in your heart having to leave out.
Oh, that I regretted having to leave out. Oh, there's so much I regretted having to leave out. Not just the research, but all those bits that you thought were nice. Yes, there is. I had the Smithsonian team, go to Trinidad and visit the Asa Wright Nature Center, which is just an amazing place for birds, and that was in the book. And I kind of, wrestled with my editor about that section because she said, it slows it down. It's kind of a tangent. Get to the point. But I lived in Trinidad for 5 years, and that is where I really, really fell in love with birds. And the Asa Wright Nature Center is kind of I think it's a World Heritage Site. It's a place where birders from all over the world go because you have the shore birds in Trinidad, and then you have the South American mountain birds, because Trinidad, sometime in our past, kind of is a chunk that broke off of the continent of South America. So you have such just a wide variety of birds of every color, shape, call. So I really wanted that in there, but I did not get my way. And she was right. You have to kind of keep a story moving. You can't just put everything in there that you would love to do. Yeah.
What else about birding do you love?
I like to tramp through forests, and I like to canoe. So there's a lot of canoeing in this book. I've been learning lately, the calls, of my backyard birds. and that's been fun. I have that app, BirdNet, and it is so educational. I mean, like, you don't want to have an app for everything, but for that, it has really taught me a lot. And I've been able to ID birds, and then when I see them and hear them, I'm like, that's a northern flicker. I was just listening to a northern flicker. So that's been an interesting challenge. And I have to say, you don't have to love exotic birds to be a birder. The backyard is a wonderful place to see birds too.
Did any part of this book start as short stories or evolve from short stories that you began?
Okay, the question was, did any of this novel start as short stories? And yes, I would say when I started this novel, I really didn't know how to write a novel. Of course, every novelist says every novel you write, you go, I don't know how to do this, But so I started it kind of as a collage, and I did start a short story that had birds in it, didn't have Loni in it, didn't have the artist aspect of it. But putting her in as an artist really helped me notice things, and the bird artist, the botany artist at the Smithsonian was great help in that, in just talking about how she sketches out and that kind of thing. Yes?
How long have you been working on this book?
Oh, I've been working on it a long time. But as I say, it was kind of nascent for a long time. And my writing group, a lot of people from my writing group are here, and they've read it a few versions. So they probably could tell you better how long I've been working on it. But they have been so helpful to me, and thank you. Because you have an idea, you don't know if it's working, and you put it in front of people, and it's just great to get the perspective of other writers whose writing you love and respect. And so if you happen to be a writer and you don't have a writing group, you need to, buddy up with people. It's such a valuable part of the process.
I was wondering, who are some of your favorite writers and writers that inspired you, and particularly as you were writing this book?
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to call upon the books that I've read this year that I have loved so much, and Anthony Doerr, of course, is on that list. His book from this year is Cloud Cuckoo Land, but he also, you may have read his book, All the Light We Cannot See. And he is just, you feel like you're in such good hands. You don't know where the story's going to take you or anything, but you're just so trusting of him because he's so masterful. And I emulate his short chapters. So I think it is really, I think a book is more fun to read when you're reading short chapters. So I've tried to do that for the most part in this book.
The bird part, where the genesis of the bird part seems fairly clear. Where did the rest of the story come from? The rest of the story, the mysterious part and the father's death and all of that in the swamp, where did that come from?
I have a friend here who's from Louisiana, and he doesn't know this, but I took a trip long before I was writing even short stories, a cross-country trip, and I stopped in Slidell, Louisiana, and someone recommended that I go on a swamp tour. And there was just something about our guide, and he had a little girl, he had a daughter, and after we had our swamp tour, and he knew everything. He knew everything about the natural history of the place, and the birds and that kind of thing. And after he dropped us off, he picked up his little girl, and off they went into the swamp. And I don't know, that image really stuck with me for years. And I think that influenced a lot of what happened. That father-daughter relationship is important. So that was It was kind of an origin story, but it was so long before I really even started writing it.
Yes, so kind of going off that question, I'm curious in general, what inspired you to want to be a writer, and then what inspired you to want to write this book?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can remember I went to St. Anne's School in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I can remember being with this friend of mine, Carol Healy, who now has a stage name. She has become an actress, and she was like, I'm going to be an actress. We were in like the 7th grade or something. I'm going to be an actress, and you're going to write the plays. And I was like, okay, yeah, I think I could do that. And you're 12 years old. My advice to people is listen to your 12-year-old self. Because in some things, That's right. Don't listen to your 12-year-old self who does like poop jokes. But when someone says, what do you want to be when you grow up, and you're 12, you know what? I think you are, it's like before you get all those inhibitions and all those messages about what you can and can't do, and those messages about like what's lucrative and what's not lucrative and that kind of thing. So I had a crooked path for sure. But I went to graduate school 9 years after graduating my undergrad, and I applied to creative writing programs, and started on the path that I probably could have started on without the crooked path. But all your experiences feed your writing, so I don't regret the way I did it, but I do think there was something that told me you're going to be a writer. So here we are. It's kind of exciting.
Why did you want to tell this particular story?
That's a good question. Why did you want to tell this particular story? It evolves over a time. You start with the birds, then this image comes into your head about this man and his daughter kind of zipping off into the swamp. I don't think I really set out to tell this particular story, but as I say to a lot of people, I'm a quilter when I'm not writing, which is a really nice compliment to words. You're just dealing with texture and color. And I think I take pieces of experience and things I overhear and also my own emotions, things that bug me or things that I think are important, and they all kind of get put into the quilt. So that's how this story evolved.
Did you know how the story would evolve? Did you know what the end would be near the beginning, or did it evolve later?
That's a good question. Did everybody hear that? Okay. I think the hardest parts of a story are the beginning and the ending, because while you're writing, you don't really know where you're going. I mean, I know people who outline their stories, and they know, they start from the end. They write the ending, and then everything else, kind of complements that. I really want to be that kind of a writer. I think that would be so much more logical, and save so much time of drafting and redrafting. But I'm not, at least yet. I keep swearing the next one I'm going to outline. But no, I think the beginning and the ending evolve as the substance of the novel evolves. And I have rewritten the beginning and the ending many, many times. The beginning more, actually, I think I've rewritten. But I have a friend, Sarah Sorkin, who always holds my feet to the fire about endings. Like, this ending does not satisfy the rest of it. You have to come to an ending that makes sense. And that's true for my short stories, my poems, anything that I write, Sarah's always there bugging me about the ending. But it's really good to have that. I hope that answers the question.
What is your process when you're writing like this?
Well, I try to write every day. I try to limit it to a certain time period. I don't let anybody talk to me or turn on the radio before I write, so I usually get up before others. Otherwise, they get offended when I say, And every once in a while, I get a chance to go off to a writing retreat, and that's when I do kind of the big architecture work. But for the most part, it's a steady drip, drip. And my rule for myself right now, especially while I'm, getting a chance to talk to you all about the Marsh Queen, and I'm working on another novel, is just to make sure I have an hour. And I set a timer, and every day, without fail, I have to put in that hour. So that keeps the thread continuous, and it gets done little by little. Thank you for that question. One in the back.
In the passage that you read, you had a colleague tell Loni to stop dating jerks.
Mm-hmm.
When she gets to Florida, gets into the marsh, does she find a love interest who's not a jerk?
Okay, so the question is, Ginger tells her to stop dating jerks. And so the question is, when she gets to Florida, does she follow that advice? And I will say that there is a strain of the novel that where she explores what a relationship is, should be, and what that means to her in terms of where she needs to kind of make her choices. So, no spoilers. But I have to also say that there is a character that is involved in that storyline that everybody tells me they love.
Jenny, so excited to see and read this novel of yours. With publishing being so difficult to break into, can you describe what it was like for you, and how did you get to this incredible, wonderful place where you could get your novel published and have all of us sitting here so excited about your work?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'm going to quote somebody who's here. My husband and I, when our son was 14, went to a parenting class. And when your child is 14, they don't like you very much. Can I tell this story? And Wendy Lubick, she's great. And she was our teacher. And in the first class, she passed out Q-tips to everyone. And she said, put these in every room of your house. And we said, what? Why a Q-tip? And she said, it's an acronym. Quit taking it personally. Because your teenager needs to rebel, and they're going to say awful things to you, and you just have to go, okay, honey, I love you. But I think it also applies to publishing, because you get so many rejections. You're constantly getting rejections, and that is a necessary part of the process. But you can't stop because, oh, that hurt my feelings, that what that editor said, or nobody likes my work, or whatever. You have to kind of believe in it and keep sending it out. So I've had lots of rejection. And I was fortunate enough to pitch this story to Emily Williamson, who's my agent now, and she, there she is, and she said, this is right in my wheelhouse. It's a matter of getting it in front of the eyes that are ready for it, that want that kind of thing. And so Emily, also, there was a lot of revision, I think, that Emily gave me. advice on. And then Emily put it in front of the right person at Gallery Books at Simon & Schuster, who just said, I didn't even know your agent, but I just really, I don't know, something about her letter made me read this book, and then I just read it all the way through. So a lot of it is luck, and I think you have to kind of like keep honing your craft, of course, but also, just keep asking the publishing gods to smile, which I feel very lucky for that. Okay, last chance for a question. Okay.
Hi, Ms. Hartman, first of all. How are you doing?
It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. I just have a question. While you were writing the novel, were there ever any times where you didn't want, you wanted to stop writing or just felt stuck? And if so, what did you do to get inspired again?
Thank you. Yes, of course. There are those discouraging times. You think, I can't think of anything else to say. I just wrote something thinking it was brilliant, and now it looks like terrible. My answer to that is that 1 hour thing. Because I set my timer, and if I'm having a terrible time and nothing's coming and I'm just transcribing old notes or something, it's only an hour, right? So I have to keep going. I have to keep doing it for an hour, and then, I can go have breakfast and, get on with the rest of my day. But I think that helps to just say, well, I'm going to keep doing it. And often, speaking of transcribing notes, sometimes I have, I look at Sarah again, because Sarah and I would go to a library and just do parallel play. We encourage each other to write side by side. We didn't interact. We just spent a certain amount of time, mostly in the Rockville Library. And I remember one time when I was just too much is going on in my life, and I don't feel like I'm productive. And I think she said, just transcribe your journal, just type in what you've already written. And, that was it. That is what I needed, to go, this is good. This is good. This can be a scene. I'm going to write this now, So I think you have to kind of get allies. That's one thing. And then just tell yourself you only have to do it for an hour, right? All right. Well, thank you for all your questions. Oh, there's one more? Yes.
How do you know when to stop editing?
I love that question. How do you know when to stop editing? As the book has come out, I've been asked by people who do book blogs or who have a website to, contribute a passage or, write about, something. And I still am like, oh, why did I put that word there? But there was a point where I had the manuscript and I didn't have a contract, and I said, you know what? I am not looking at this thing again until somebody buys it and tells me what to do with it, So you can kind of get yourself sick of it. And it's always good to have another project going so that you have something kind of new and exciting to work on at the same time. But that is an excellent question, because I'm sure painters, go look at their painting in a museum and go, oh, that yellow, So you're always doing it. It's kind of a reflex. And I love editing, so it's hard to stop. All right. Well, thank you very much. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you're here, and I'm happy to sign any